Okay, ladies and gents, let's move on to our next session, which is going to be the second of our COVID comeback stories. We heard from Raoul earlier and what Menzies have done to respond to the crisis, adapt and innovate and drive success. We're now going to go to Canada and Toronto, and I'm delighted to welcome Fabbio Mifsud, who is Manager Ground Handling Program at Greater Toronto Airports Authority. We're having a few technical issues. I can see my team in the back, but I think we're going to hopefully get there. Here we go. Excellent. I think we're just trying to get Fabbio back on visual, but hopefully it won't take too long. There we are. Hello, Fabbio.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Can't complain.
Excellent. How's everything in Toronto?
Weather is cooperating. We were -3 yesterday and 17 today. So
it's been a balmy 20 degrees in England, would you believe, in March. So every time we hold an America's event, no matter what time of year, we get a heat wave. So we should do it more often to get better weather.
Through 3 seasons and 4 weather zones in less than 24 hours. So yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And we are going to be hearing from you about navigating troubled waters, the Toronto Pearson International Airport story. So I'll hand the floor to you and tell us your story.
Okay, let's try to get my screen shared here.
No problem. We'll see if the technology complies.
Let me know if you can see it.
Here we go, Fabbio. I think yes, we're there. I will leave you to it. Thank you.
Hopefully it's in presentation mode.
Sorry, I messed up my mute. Fabbio, if you speak, hopefully we can hear you, but we're getting that in presentation mode.
Okay.
As long as, yep, I think we're ready.
Okay, ready to start.
Over to you.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having me. I'll provide a quick disclaimer. I apologize for the nasally sound and the hoarseness of my voice. I have seasonal allergies, which usually isn't an issue. However, trying to get my medication, I realized that my answer is yes to all the COVID questions with the exception of leaving the country. So it's a bit of a driving time, but thanks for having me again. I think some of the discussions already kind of lead into a good segue to what I would like to talk to folks about today. At least speaking from the Canadian side, we've seen a lot of challenges with the federal legislation and some of the moratoriums on flying. So it's a bit of a moving target, with the target also moving sizes as we're going. But at any rate, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and the gift of your time and attention. My name is Fabbio Mifsud, and I look after ground handling programs as well as airside safety, compliance, and enforcement at the Greater Toronto Airports Authority. For those unfamiliar with Toronto Pearson, we live by our vision to be the best airport in the world. Our mission statement, passengers are our passion. And our approach to succeed at this is built on enabling seamless passenger experience that delivers on safety, choices, as well as the ease and speed of which they can pass through our hub. We have, for the 4th consecutive year, been awarded the best large airport in North America, serving more than 40 million passengers by Airport Councils International. And Pearson has also received the award for best hygiene measures by region in North America, which was a new category added this year and is chosen by passengers. I would like to spend some time talking to you about how we have faced the global pandemic and how each day we continue evolving all aspects of our response to COVID-19 and how it relates to stakeholder engagement. The 3 main areas I'd like to focus on have been health and safety, collaboration and support, and opportunities. With health and safety, we refer to this as our Healthy Airport Initiative, and it covers all the undertakings we have in this area. With respect to collaboration and support, given the gravity of the situation, we look specifically at our role as an airport authority. How do we meet the needs of our stakeholders and public while also being nimble, dynamic, and supportive? For opportunities, the pandemic and resultant slowdown gave us the opportunity to actually make things better and to look at adjusting processes, SOPs, and our operation as a whole. All of this was done in communication and collaboration across multiple internal departments, as well as with our 400 stakeholders. To build to our goal, we did a deep dive into every element of the passenger value chain, looking at what's important to them and how we can provide that to their expectations in a safe manner. We conducted several internal and external staff surveys to gauge and itemize the concerns, and we prioritized innovations that were backed by sound science. As noted, we won ACI's award for best hygiene measures in North America, which is a testament to the fact that our Healthy Airport initiative is receiving a positive response from passengers, the public, and is having its intended result. Some of the initiatives undertaken to support this theme I would like to mention are creating safe spacing for staff, passengers, maintaining physical distancing throughout the buildings, virtual customer service interfaces. We installed over 3 kilometers of plexiglass for protection, hospital-grade air quality provided by state-of-the-art air scrubbers, as well as analytics to analyze parts per millions in the air. And over 6,500 information signs and screens were installed throughout the buildings to provide safety updates to passengers and public. We installed autonomous floor cleaners that were procured and deployed to allow around-the-clock improved cleaning. Washroom deep cleans were done every 30 minutes and continue to do so. We've retained rapid response cleaning teams that are on hand around the clock for ad hoc calls as required. We converted touchless washroom hardware throughout the buildings. We enhanced reporting on cleaning operations and digital tasks and logs to feed in analytics to provide us sound oversight of all the cleaning aspects of our building. Touchless kiosks were deployed throughout. We have low-touch Nexus units for trans-border passengers. No-touch electronic gates at boardings are deployed and being trialed. Touchless self-serve bag drops are in use at the departures level. Digital check-in monitoring to get real-time access to passenger flow information at the departures level. Thermal imaging implementation for passengers and staff. No-touch feedback app was rolled out via QR codes. No-touch passenger service stations were added throughout the building for passengers that needed additional customer service, wayfinding, and whatnot, as well as special aids provided for hearing or sight impaired passengers. Elevators were retrofitted with touchless electronics. We're currently trialing touchless bag tags, new border experience, e-gating. We've hooked up with Blue Dots apps for global tracking and information. We've trialed personal tracking devices for GTA employees, and we've also rolled that out to the external stakeholders if they require or they want to be part of the trials. And additional state-of-the-art testing is done through McMaster universities and some of the health institutes that we have. We've also set up weekly antigen testing for GTA employees as well as employees working at Pearson, whereby they can go 3 times a week to get tested, providing them for additional, gives them peace of mind coming to work and going home. Apologies, my screen has frozen. Collaboration and support. Collaboration and support is something that's been key to us. Given the gravity of the situation, we look specifically at our role as an airport authority and really reflected on what and who we wanted to be. We could have kept to ourselves and micromanaged things in isolation for our own purposes. However, as mentioned, our goal has been to be the best airport in the world, to work at, to work for, and to travel through, and to have in your community. To achieve that success invariably involves the cooperation of many minds, and we cannot get there without everyone involved at Pearson working together towards that goal. On that journey, we wanted to continue to be a leader now more than ever. To that end, we doubled down on our efforts to support, educate, and collaborate with the extended Toronto Pearson community. Highlighting some of the initiatives driven by our stakeholder collaboration and support, we set up daily calls with Public Health Agency of Canada to provide real-time and the most up-to-date information for our employees and the extended community. We made available various relief options for tenants, providing various aspects of monetary relief when required. New long-term and mid-term parking areas were set up to declutter the apron and provide safety for GSE and help snow clearing operations in the winter months. Right-sized assigned parking areas at the buildings. We right-sized the airfield with the closure of one of the 5 runways. We also closed one of our 6 essential de-icing facility pads for cost savings. We increased rolling stock and ULD parking, and additionally removed over 500 plus pieces of ULDs from the airfield, if you can believe it. We assisted with job fairs for those staff that have been furloughed or extended furlough, whereby some of the supply chain companies such as Amazon, UPS, and FedEx, who were still hiring while the rest of the industry was downsizing, were able to apply and procure jobs at these places in the meantime. Constant review of passenger flight schedules and loads to gauge up and down our active gates dynamically as required. We set up a long-term parking plan to assist our airline partners. We shared best practices across the community to ensure everybody had the support they required. We linked up external stakeholders with IATA documents for guidance and reference to help them plan and right-size their business. We set up a Pearson COVID reporting website and database with input from the tenants. Active staffing reports are generated weekly to monitor the impact on the workforce, where we track the active staff counts for all companies, ourselves included, dating back to March of 2020 to provide that information to federal level legislation. Airside vehicle operator permits extension were issued to staff not currently active to avoid having them come back to work with expired driver's license. We instituted a comprehensive deplaning arrival plan to allow all safety measures for staff and passengers when they arrive into Toronto. And we created various subcommittees to develop a strong focus on cargo operations and serving the ever-growing cargo market. The slowdown in traffic brought about by the pandemic afforded us the opportunity to look at a variety of processes and activities and determine how we could make them better. Moreover, for a long time, we had a few projects in holding patterns due to the scale and operational impact they would cause, and now with a drastically reduced operation, we had windows to potentially get these done and make them work. We set about looking into all of these scenarios and table-topping the pros versus the cons, the impacts, the costs, durations, and if they could be executed safely given the new norms that we're having to live with. We also looked at new ways to use our campus, and if there were any areas that needed focus that we could provide a tweaking on. We included external stakeholders into all these talks as well. Out of these brainstorming sessions, we accomplished a hefty list, of which we were able to undertake a great deal of them. Some have been started, some have been completed, and some are still a work in progress. Some of those highlights are creating a cargo-focused airport operations committee to meet the demands on the cargo operations and properly support supply chains. Using our leveled parking garage for a drive-through winter holiday event for employees and the traveling public. We leased an unused portion of the remote terminal to a third party for their own purposes. We repurposed the footprint of a currently on hold terminal expansion project and used it for GSE parking that resulted in approximately 35% of rolling stock being removed from the buildings. As mentioned, the antigen testing for Pearson staff conducted 3 times weekly. We've upgauged our safety audits conducted by our safety officers, focusing on FOD and GSE health keeping to help reset the culture on the ramp and maintain situational awareness. Arrival compliance reports are being done weekly for ground handlers and airlines. Airport-wide revamp of severe weather plans, including established triggers and related actions, now that we had the ability to do them and trial them appropriately. We're planning a virtual airside week for the fall in lieu of being able to do our traditional one in person with various safety events. We revamped our airside driving program with externals as part of the decision-making and working group. And we focused on the mental health of staff through various initiatives such as town halls, one-on-one talks, and third-party support that's extended not just to the GTA employees, but to the extended airport community as well. In-depth preventative maintenance push has been done on traditionally hard-to-work areas such as gates, runways, taxiways, and approach lights. Wrapping up our time together today, I would like to reaffirm that we always counter loss with gratitude, which allows us to see how our work is needed and makes a difference. We have a strong strategic plan to guide us. We will stay the course and hold steadfast to our values and strategy as we create outcomes that will lead to renewal and recovery. Everyone is needed and important to achieve our goal, which is a smart, healthy, dynamic, and profitable airport of the future. In the middle of every difficulty lies opportunities. Let's make the best of ours. It has been my pleasure speaking with you today. It has been a great experience, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the discussions, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the conference. If I could, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Martin Luther King. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving forward. Thank you for your time. Be safe, and this too shall pass.
Thank you, Fabbio. Some wise words there from Martin Luther King Jr. Really interesting presentation. Thank you very much. One thing, if you've got questions for Fabbio on that presentation, do drop them into the Q&A, and we've got some time now, and we can put them to Fabbio. So drop them into that Q&A icon with the two speech bubbles at the bottom of the screen, and I'll pick it up from there. Fabbio, some of the digital innovations you showed around boarding and around cleaning were really interesting on those slides. And can you comment on, do you think they will be there temporarily whilst we're in this pandemic, or do you see those as long-term fixtures now within the airport environment?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges pre-COVID, if folks can remember pre-COVID at this point, is particularly the last couple of years, actually. Influenza season has hit the airport pretty hard, for various reasons. We've had, as I say, I think speaking for us personally, we're on our way to 60 million passengers, so more people than ever, more employees than ever, densifications of the buildings, various in-transit passenger processes. You have a lot of people in tight spaces. So we were already looking at, what the impact is on that. The amount of sickness on staffs across the building has been a challenge. So for sure, I think our air scrubbers, our quality control programs looking at the air quality in the buildings, I think for sure those will stay. And then the other thing is the transaction time on some of these electronic units and the ease of which we're able to maintain connections. I think it has, a double effect. It's an extra additional level of safety because it's touchless. But we're also seeing improved transaction time. So it'd be really interesting when volumes start to come back to see if we're able to maintain that. We're anticipating a bit of a learning curve for the traveling public, at least in Canada, is not as savvy with some of the self-serve items as they may be in the EU or Asia, let's say. But we're anticipating those definitely sticking around. Some of the autonomous cleaning items, allows the building to increase hygiene level with, not less manpower, but it makes it a lot more efficient because you can kind of program them. I think all the analytics that we've started to really do a full court press on here in light of the pandemic is going to yield a lot of information. It'll be interesting to pivot and use that information for business cases in the future, whether it be expansion, connection products, or adapting portfolios per se.
Thanks, Fabbio. You mentioned at the end and throughout really that spirit of collaboration and teamwork, across the airport. between different stakeholder groups. How would you say you've engendered that feeling of positivity and responding to challenge, seeing this as an opportunity, and remaining defiant? How have you generated and spread that across the supply chains that operate within the airport?
Yeah, so a big challenge for us is, everybody kind of took a step back and, mourned a little bit, the way things were going for folks. However, at least in our scenario, it didn't appear that there was a lot coming out from the legislation, at the federal level. So we kind of sat down, took a lay of the land, like, we're kind of a little bit to our own devices. We can, stand and let things pass us by, or we can lead from the front. So a lot of the planning is done at the higher levels. However, not just for aviation, but getting through the pandemic, this is really a success story of the blue collar workers. We can plan as much as we want at various levels, but this work is the frontline work is carried out by the frontline workers. So it was really important for us to make sure that they have a voice at a level voice at the discussion tables. So we spent a lot of work talking to them, what are their concerns, making sure that they felt, safe and wanted to come to work. It's a pretty risky work environment without all this. This is just another level. They want to come to work, but they also want to be safe and don't want to, put their families at risk. So, and that was really important, making sure that they had as much information and consistent information. At least in Pearson, it's always a challenge disseminating information down from the airport authorities to the various companies. And a lot of times, service providers in particular, they kind of unintentionally get left out or are the most challenged with getting the proper information. So we went right down to the front lines and started engaging not just company management, they were obviously involved, but we talked to everybody, temporary, part-time, ramp staff. Our QR code feedback was provided a lot of priceless information because they were able to give us a quick hit back, they like this, they didn't like this. And, we saw a lot of positive feedback. The demeanor of folks too, just including them in these discussions, initially they were sort of taken back by all the questions we were asking. But they, a lot of them get to walk through the buildings and see some of the suggestions they made actually being implemented. And we were also, aware that we needed to make sure the end game worked for them, that we would go back to them and say, okay, Max, you suggested this, we tried it. Maybe it didn't work, but giving them some feedback that, so we started a slogan of Pearson Strong, that wasn't just Airport Authority, it was Pearson wide. So we really wanted people to take pride in what they were doing. And also a lot of our communications, if you see online, it's kind of community centric versus airport centric. We really are a window to the world for Ontario in our neck of the woods. So, indirectly there's about 60,000 jobs affected by the airport. So there's a lot of good vaccines are coming through. So it's not just the place of work. This supports a good portion of the country, and that every employee down to a temporary worker is a cog in that wheel, and they're helping propel it forward. So yeah, it was probably the most important was making sure that we included those people and didn't leave them behind.
Is there anything that you would have done differently, or you perhaps did at first when the crisis first hit, that you've adapted and thought, no, that wasn't working, we're going to approach it in a different way? Has there been lessons learned from the...
I think some of the federal relief packages, particularly that came from the government, were a bit of some of the speakers have touched on, were a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. We ended up in a situation where they provided relief because we were taking some of the information provided by us was used to lobby the government for relief packages. But the way it was rolled out, I'm not sure in haste is the right word, but the time was of the essence, and there's, some is political reasons, some are cost money, but the way some of it rolled out kind of hurt the service providers because folks were provided a monetary relief if they were furloughed. However, the way it was structured was if you maintained any hours, they lost that. So in some aspects, people were making more with the relief packages at home So maybe a better strategy in making sure that you know, the plight of some of these situations was fully articulated and realized to the legislators, I would say.
Thanks, Fabbio. Well, that was a really interesting story, and we could wish you continued success as we move hopefully forward and out of the crisis. And we're going to hear from you again on GSE and the topic of how you adapted your GSE strategy at the closing panel this afternoon. But for now, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure hosting you, and we'll speak to you in a little while.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabbio.